everyone. Hope you're having a great start to your week. Welcome into an all-new episode of Timeout Tuesday, where we welcome in college basketball analyst Mike O'Donnell, who's here to break down some American hoops. Mike, crazy to think that in just 2 weeks, we're going to be in Memphis covering the conference tournament, and for the American, 9 teams in the top net 100. What are the chances that this is the most exciting tournament yet since the league's inception?
Well, first of all, basketball on Beale Street, I can't wait. It just goes really well together. I'll tell you this, with all the parity in the American Conference, for me, all bets are off. Obviously, Houston is the favorite, but then you could look at Cincinnati, UCF, Memphis. I am so worried for teams on Memphis's side of the bracket because they play so well at home. You know those fans in the FedEx Forum are going to be crazy. And then you have teams like Wichita State playing really well. Temple is always great come tournament time. It's going to be crazy. I am so excited to get there in a few weeks.
We saw a couple American teams move up this week in the national polls. Houston up to as high as number 6 and Cincinnati up to as high as number 22. Let's start off with the Cougars, with both of these teams looking to be tournament locks at this point. Where do you expect them to fall come tournament time?
Yeah, Haley, they are a lock, both of them, Houston and Cincinnati. But Houston is, I think, they're better than 6. They should be in the top 5 in the country. It's going to be really interesting to see what the committee does if Houston wins out the regular season, and what happens if they win the American Conference tournament. They're going to be looking at a potential 1 seed in the NCAA tournament if they do that. But right now, realistic expectations for Houston, if the season ended today, they would be a 2 or a 3 seed. They're one of the best defensive teams in the country. And on top of that, they have a net ranking of 4. And Joe Lunardi has them around a 3 seed. Could be a 2, but as a top 5 rebounding team, they're top 5 in scoring defense. They're the 3rd best team in college basketball guarding the 3-point line. They win their games by an average of 15 points. They're just lights out right now. Cincinnati could be looking anywhere between a 6 and 8 seed. They're 2nd in the American Conference right now. They're also one of the better defensive teams in the country, right? Everybody hates playing against Cincinnati. Nobody wants to play against those guys. They have great wins over Ole Miss as well. And I think for the Bearcats, a 6 seed was probably their ceiling, unless if they get to the conference title game, they could easily be a 5 seed come Selection Sunday.
For Mick Cronin's Bearcats, it looks like they will be making an unbelievable 9th straight trip to the NCAA tournament. How do the Bearcats get over that hump and gain some momentum in the tournament?
Well, I don't think you're not going to see the Bearcats do anything different, right? The one thing they struggle with a little bit on the offensive end, but you have Player of the Year candidate Jerron Cumberland averaging 18 points per game. You know they're going to rebound. You know they're going to defend. That's what they do really well. But if the second guy to step up scoring-wise, if Kane Broome can average 13 to 14 points per game in these last 4 games for Cincinnati, that changes the way that they play. When you add a second legitimate scorer, I really believe that is Kane Broome. I don't think there's anybody else on the Cincinnati team that can score at the level that Broome can. If he's averaging around 14 points per game these last 4 games going into conference play, that probably becomes the most dangerous 1-2 punch in the American Conference between Cumberland and Kane Broome. So watch out for the Bearcats and pay attention to Kane Broome if he starts lighting it up.
Mike, pundits around the country are predicting 4 teams get into the tournament from the American. UCF and Temple, they have great resumes up to this point, and they're going to have a tough schedule to close out the season. Come Selection Sunday, what needs to happen for Fran Dunphy and Johnny Dawkins' squads to feel safe when they're waiting to hear their names called, hopefully?
If the season ended today, UCF and Temple are in. They are both bubble teams. Joe Lunardi has UCF as one of the last 4 teams with a bye. He has Temple as the last 4 in. That is a dangerous place to be if you're Temple. And if you're UCF, you're still sweating as well, just not as much as Temple. But if you look at UCF, they're 20-6, 3rd in the American Conference. Their next 4 games, they have great opportunities to find a marquee win. Obviously, they have South Florida on Wednesday. They play at Houston in College Game Day, which we'll talk about in a second. Then they have Cincinnati at home, and then they're at Temple. So they have 4 quadrant 1 potential wins on their schedule in the next 4 games. And Temple plays Memphis, Tulane, they're at UConn, and then they have UCF on senior night. So Temple could kind of play their way in as well. UCF has a net ranking of 34. Temple has a net ranking of 50. You should feel somewhat comfortable, but just a little bit of sweat on the forehead. That's why I think you need to finish out the season strong.
Let's talk conference tournament. We mentioned we'll be in Memphis in a couple weeks, and perks of hosting the conference championship, Mike, home court advantage. Memphis has really turned it on at home this year, 13-2 with their only losses coming to Tennessee and Cincinnati. First of all, how big of a threat is Memphis, and could they potentially be a fifth team for the American making it to the big dance?
Absolutely a serious threat because they're at home, because of that incredible home record they have. They shoot the ball better at home than they do on the road. And on top of that, Jeremiah Martin is playing insane basketball for the Memphis Tigers. He's been tremendous. The last 4 games, he's had 31 points, 25 points, 43, and 37. He's going to be in contention for Player of the Year. He's giving Jerron Cumberland all he can handle. They have a net ranking of 60. And it's a higher ranking than teams like Arizona State and Davidson. So Memphis could easily play I don't want to say easily, but they are set up at home to play for that conference title game. The crowd's going to be crazy. The other team, though, you need to keep an eye on South Florida. I don't think they're going to make it to the NCAA tournament, but just the fact that we are saying that is a big deal and why I think Coach Gregory is Coach of the Year. But South Florida playing in the NIT is absolutely possible. They are one of the best 68 teams in the country, and it's an incredible turnaround. Worst case scenario for Memphis is the NIT. They're a lock for the NIT. Worst case scenario for South Florida, they're an NIT team as well. So if there's only 4 teams that get in for the American Conference, which is still really good, you're going to have 2 other teams playing high postseason play, Memphis and South Florida, in the NIT.
Very much looking forward to Memphis and the conference tournament. But before we get to any of that, big day coming up this Saturday as Houston found out they would be hosting game day for the first time in program history. Mike, what statement does this make for Kelvin Sampson's program moving forward?
Legitimacy, that it's not just Houston has arrived, that the American Conference has been here and is more than just arrived. They are a major player in college basketball. And I think when you look at the years down the road, ESPN looked at this game and said, these are 2 NCAA tournament teams. And on top of that, this is one of the best arenas in the country. The Fertitta Center is going to be rocking. You got Jay Billis, Reese Davis, Jay Williams all lined up to see this Houston team, who is a legitimate top 5 team in my opinion. And I think it speaks wonders to what ESPN thinks of the American Conference, how powerful the American Conference is, and with the potential of 4 or 5 teams in the NCAA tournament, that's better than the Pac-12, and you're going to be looking at a incredible atmosphere. I am so excited for the city of Houston, the university, and the American Conference for ESPN making the right decision to do it at Houston.
It's going to be quite the scene at the brand new, beautiful Fertitta Center. Mike, real quick, a couple games you have circled on your schedule this week.
Right, we just talked about Beale Street and the FedEx Forum. Memphis hosts Temple. That is a huge game, not just for Memphis, but for Temple. They need those road wins to solidify their bubble status. You know, maybe wipe some of that sweat off the forehead if they can get a win against Memphis at home. You also have the War on I-4 on Wednesday, UCF at South Florida. That is a monster game against 2 of the best defensive teams in the American Conference. And then Saturday, it's College Game Day. You can't get any bigger than that. UCF at Houston, Johnny Dawkins matching up against Kelvin Sampson. You have 2 of the best defensive and rebounding teams in the country in UCF and Houston. That place is going to be rocking. Fertitta Center, going to be insane. I can't wait. I'll be tuned in for sure.
Great moment for Houston hosting College Game Day. Looking forward to it. And Mike, we'll see you here in a couple weeks in Memphis. Thanks a lot.
Can't wait. Looking forward to it.